What's going on, everybody? This is Kerry Wood, sportsandswag.com, another edition of the Sports and Swag podcast. Thursday night in the NBA playoffs, conference semifinals, game 6. What an unbelievable performance. What an unbelievable game that we saw here just a little while ago. Unbelievable. San Antonio Spurs showing why they're the best franchise in the NBA. It's not even I don't think it's even really close yet, because even though the Golden State Warriors are doing their thing, man, and looking at winning their second title in 3 years and all that, you've got the Cleveland Cavaliers doing their thing with LeBron James. San Antonio Spurs have been doing it a long time, a lot longer than those two franchises have been doing it. Spurs are without question, the second best franchise, in my opinion, in sports. I think, we want to talk about all the deflate gates and, stealing plays and all of that. New England Patriots are still right there. I don't know. Again, who knows? I mean, the Spurs and the Patriots, you could kind of argue which one's the best, but I don't think there's any doubt. There's not even debatable that those two franchises are the best two franchises in sports. And Spurs showed it tonight. They came out, no Tony Parker, because they've not had Tony Parker for the last few games. No Kawhi Leonard. They came out on the opposing team's court and took care of business. They came out and punched the Houston Rockets dead in the mouth repeatedly. That's what you do. That's what championship level teams do. The Houston Rockets sat there in the fetal position and took every punch and did not punch back, not one time. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. James Harden, 11 shots. 11. He should have taken 11 shots in the first 5 or 6 minutes of this ball game, knowing that this was an elimination game. 11 shots. Yet, I'm still hearing chatter on Twitter, Google+. Still, of course, James Harden is getting plenty of blame. There's no question about that. Stephen A. Smith just went in on him hard. Deservedly so. But I'm still hearing overwhelming amount of chatter about Mike D'Antoni in this situation. And I want to address that first. Before I go into James Harden, I'm going to talk about this Mike D'Antoni thing first. I just fail to see why this guy continues to get the bad rep, continues to get the criticism that he gets. Now look, the other night, if it was my team, yeah, I probably would have played another guy. I don't think I would have gone in that thing with 7 guys in my rotation and left it at that. No, I probably wouldn't have. But I'm not going to sit here and say that's what lost that basketball game Tuesday night. And then I'm definitely not going to say that it had everything to do with what we saw tonight. I'm not going to say it. No. This dude, I know he has never won an NBA title. He's never beaten Greg Popovich. At least not when it counted. In the playoffs, he hasn't. But this is a guy that I don't know, man. The criticism is unbelievable. This is the same dude that did lead the Phoenix Suns to 2 back-to-back Western Conference Finals. I think that kind of gets lost in the shuffle with what happened in LA with the Lakers. The Lakers organization gave him nothing to work with in terms of how he wanted to run his team, in terms of how he wanted the personnel to be on his team to run the type of offense that he wants to run. The type of offense we see the Houston Rockets running right now. You're not going to run that type of offense with Pau Gasol and Dwight Howard playing power forward and center at the same time. Even one of those guys on the floor, you weren't going to get that done. You're not going to get that type of action with Carmelo Anthony and some of the other guys that played on those Knicks teams when D'Antoni coached there. You know, I don't know, man. He gets a lot of unfair criticism. Now, again, don't get me wrong. Now, I'm not saying he's perfect. He's far from that. He's far from that. We always talk about, you know, his team's not defending as well as other teams, giving up a lot of points. Well, you know, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, they take a lot of threes. So naturally, when you have a team that takes a lot of 3-point shots, you're going to give up a lot of long rebounds, and that's going to be a lot of guys out of whack as far as balancing the floor, getting back, finding shooters from the opposite team, and they're going to have a lot easier shots. They're going to have a lot easier baskets. They're going to get fast break points against the Mike D'Antoni coach team. But man, I mean, I'm really blown away by what I've seen about Mike D'Antoni here over the last couple of days, man. You know, look, the 7-man rotation. I'm going to talk about that for a quick second before we get into James Harden things. The Rockets played those 7 guys, but you know, do the people that are criticizing Mike D'Antoni, do they even know who he has on the bench? Okay, yeah, that's Sam Decker, who had some productive minutes for the Houston Rockets. There's no question about it. I would have played him the other night. No question. I would have played him a few minutes. You have Montrezl Harrell. Other than that, you have a bunch of guys that play mostly in the D League. You're going to bring those guys in the middle of the playoffs? I mean, so at most he could have brought us maybe 8, maybe 9 if you would have said Montrezl Harrell. But Harrell is another guy that's undersized. The Rockets did okay in that game until the last couple of minutes. They were right there. They had many chances to win that basketball game. The Spurs did everything they could. They put that game on a silver platter, and the Rockets pretty much threw it right back at them. They didn't want it. They didn't want the game. So, you know, blaming Mike D'Antoni for that and then blaming him for tonight, some of the people that are, you know, well, you know, the Rockets were tired. You know, they were worn out because he didn't play with 7 players the other night. Come on, man. Really? Let's look at some of these numbers. The minutes played on Tuesday night. Let's look at this for a quick second. You want to talk about James Harden, how many minutes he played? Maybe he was tired tonight, or maybe that's what it was. Well, he played 43 minutes. Well, which is a lot of minutes. But you have to factor in there was overtime. So that added 5 minutes right there. So he played 43 of the 53 minutes played in the game on Tuesday night. So, but if you break it down to regulation time, that's about 38 minutes, right? Well, he averaged around 36 minutes during the entire season. So he played 2 more minutes than he usually plays in regulation. It's not counting overtime. Okay, he played 2 more minutes above what he usually plays. And this is playing back-to-backs, you know, all of that type stuff. This longer travel times than traveling from Houston to San Antonio or San Antonio to Houston. So we're going to run that at him. We're going to say, oh, he was tired. Yeah, okay. Eric Gordon, 44 minutes in that game. That's a lot of minutes for him, no doubt. But again, there was overtime. I mean, these numbers, they are inflated for a lot of these guys. Lou Williams probably wouldn't have played 26 minutes. Ryan Anderson probably wouldn't have played 36 minutes. But again, this is not anything egregious. It's not just so far over their numbers where these guys should have just been worn out. I mean, you know, if this were over a 3 or 4 game period, then I can understand it. But we're talking about one game that Mike D'Antoni said, you know what, I'm going to go with my best guys, and we're going to try to win this game, which they should have done, and we're going to try to end this damn series in 6 games. It didn't happen like that. Blaming Mike D'Antoni, look, I mean, again, most coaches would play more than 7 players. I don't know of anyone that wouldn't. But playing 7 players did not have anything to do with what happened Tuesday night, and it definitely didn't have anything to do with what happened tonight. So, to me, Mike D'Antoni criticism should stop. The Houston Rockets wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for Mike D'Antoni changing the offense where it suited James Harden more, going and picking up Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon and those guys to put around him, shooters to put around him. It just didn't have an effect, man. Anyway, enough of that. I'm going to talk about James Harden. This is the thing that I don't know, man. This is the thing that you fear about James Harden on a, you know, when you get to the playoffs. Not to this extent, but we've seen big time struggles from number 13 in the playoffs. I'll never forget Game 6 in was that 2015 against the Clippers. James Harden struggling like all get out, couldn't hit the side of a barn with the basketball. Kevin McHale took him out of the game. The Rockets came back and won that game, you know, an elimination game, as also in that one against the Clippers at home. They did it. They came back without James Harden. Point blank simple. They came back without James Harden in that game. No, I'm sorry. Was it in? I can't remember if it was in LA or if it was in Houston, but I remember it was Game 6, and Houston trailed in that game big time. They came back without James Harden. This is nothing new. Him checking out in playoff games is nothing new. We just haven't seen it to this extent. Not taking a shot in the first quarter. Not taking a shot. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So this is the thing about James Harden, man. And if you're a Rockets fan, even if you're not, even if you're just an NBA fan, this is the thing that should just piss you off about James Harden, because it's like it just doesn't really matter a whole lot to him. Look at him in the post-game press conference. I mean, there's no emotion, none at all, absolutely none. And he had the audacity to sit there and say, "Oh, you know, I was making some passes, and guys weren't knocking down shots." Really? Well, at least they took some shots. At least they took a shot in the first quarter. Maybe if you would actually take a second to actually throw the ball right and put the ball where they can do something with it, maybe they would have made a shot. Instead of holding the ball for 20 seconds and then deciding to pass the ball because you're scared, you've checked out, you're choking. It's unbelievable performance by James Harden tonight. Stephen A. Smith 100% agree with what he said about James Harden, but then of course he had to go and throw his Mike D'Antoni rant in there for a minute. I'm sorry, I'm not buying the D'Antoni excuse, man. James Harden's gonna make, I mean, who knows how much more money than Mike D'Antoni will ever dream of making. If you can't get up for a game 6, an elimination game at home in front of the crowd, in front of the huge crowd that chants your name MVP every night, and you can't get up and play harder and play better than that, there's something wrong with you. Or maybe Stephen A. Smith was right. Maybe he was drugged. Maybe he was. I don't know. Maybe somebody paid him off. Maybe, maybe it's a point shaving scheme or something. Absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible by James Harden. And that's all I'm going to say about him. I mean, he's not worth the time, man. It's not worth the time to sit here and talk about. But I will say this, the Houston Rockets, man, for a team that really looked to have a really bright future, this is a dangerous time for them. This is a dangerous time for the Houston Rockets now. Because, yeah, Mike D'Antoni has really changed the culture as far as the offense is concerned. Sharing the ball, open offense, spread the floor. A lot of people involved in the offense, making plays. But you got to wonder about the psyche of this basketball team. And this is going to be a long summer. I mean, they're going to have to make some changes personnel-wise. They've got to get some guys that can play inside, a couple guys. I mean, of course, Nene was hurt, and that had a little bit to do with tonight, too. That had a good bit to do. But they're going to have to do some things, man, with the mentality of this basketball team. The mentality. And it starts with number 13. I don't know what you can do to make things better. I don't know if this is something, identifying a leader on a basketball team, because it's definitely not James Harden. But this team needs leadership. This is the team, if you watch the Houston Rockets like I do, and like a lot of Houston Rockets fans do, this is nothing new the way they played tonight. This is nothing new. Absolutely nothing new. Yeah, this is nothing new if you're a Houston Rockets fan. I'm used to this team coming out, playing lethargic to start off games, or maybe starting off the game like gangbusters. They come out and hit 5 or 6 threes and get up 15 points on a team, then let them back in the game. This is nothing new, man. This psyche of this team is a problem. It's been an issue for several years, and I don't know, something's got to be done, man. There's got to be some type of, change in the roster. Got to get some leadership from somewhere, because it's becoming painfully obvious that James Harden is not going to ever grow into that. It's painfully obvious. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about the Houston Rockets through this whole podcast. I'm going to talk about the Spurs as well, and talk about what they did do. Man. Again, the Spurs, they are that franchise, and there's a reason you saw this. You saw what happened tonight. Greg Popovich is a genius. He knows how to get the most out of his basketball team. It's unbelievable, man. They finally were able to get contributions from LaMarcus Aldridge. Consistent contributions. He had a couple good games earlier in the series, but this was by far the best one. But this is the game that he probably should have been having. Now, maybe he was injured. I mean, there's no doubt there seemed to be a problem with his left leg, his knee or ankle or whatever. So, It's understandable. But this is the type game that he could have been having pretty much all series. I mean, there was no one that was going to be able to guard him on that basketball team of the Houston Rockets. Nobody. Not even Clint Capella. No one. Pau Gasol the same. You know, I mean, I was looking at SportsCenter there, right there, immediately after the game. I can't remember who the anchors were, but they were talking about, oh, well, you know, LaMarcus Aldridge had 26 shots. I mean, like it was a big deal. Well, he had 21 shots the other night, Tuesday night. You know, they were making it seem like, oh, well, the Spurs just all of a sudden made this concerted effort to get him the ball. No. He had 21 shots the other night, and I can count 5 or 6 times or more where he passed up shots where he should have shot the ball on Tuesday night. He could have had 30 shots Tuesday night. I mean, nothing new happened tonight. Nothing but James Harden stinking up the place other than that. I mean, other than that, nothing new. The Spurs made shots. They didn't make them Tuesday night, or this game, that game wouldn't have been in overtime. The Spurs would have won it going away in San Antonio as well. They missed shots. Pau Gasol missing shots, not being aggressive. Aldridge not being aggressive. You know, the Rockets were lucky to be in that ball game, period. So it was kind of one of those perfect storm kind of things tonight. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with that movie back, can't remember exactly when it was, a few years ago. I think Mark Wahlberg was in it. It was a movie where he and some of he had a crew of men on a ship, and they were out in the Atlantic Ocean, deep in the Atlantic Ocean, and there was this huge storm. Really the storm, it was really 2 separate storms that were going to kind of meet with each other in there, right out there in the Atlantic. And it just so happened they both met right there where his crew was, and they had to survive that storm. I mean, that's the kind of storm that the Houston Rockets were hit with tonight. Well, at least everyone wearing a Rockets jersey except James Harden. LaMarcus Aldridge was on his game. The Spurs came out and they hit the Rockets dead in the mouth. The Rockets, you know, James Harden didn't show up. He was absent. He was totally, completely out of the game, completely out of whack. All of those things kind of rolled into one and made the perfect storm tonight. And that's why the San Antonio Spurs, not only did they beat the Houston Rockets, not only did they dominate them, they annihilated the Houston Rockets. And I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not going to say anytime there's a head coach, Mike D'Antoni, you're going to have to put some blame on there, no doubt. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Mike D'Antoni is blameless in this situation. But I'm not going to sit here and hear that this dude, Mike D'Antoni, this was his fault. No. This was squarely on James Harden, number 13. As he goes, so goes this basketball team. And when he came out lethargic, when he came out and didn't really show up, passive, that's exactly how the rest of the team played. And it's just really a damn shame. Again, I'm Kerry Wood, man. This is a sad night for me as my Houston Rockets go down in defeat. We'll get ready for the San Antonio Spurs, though, to travel to Oakland to play the Golden State Warriors, game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. That goes down Sunday. You know we're going to have our preview up on sportsandswag.com. Man, I'll tell you, just looking at this thing early, if the Spurs can get that type of performance from LaMarcus Aldridge in 4 or 5 of those games, again, just like the Rockets didn't have anybody that could defend him. Not really. Maybe, Clint Capella was it. The Warriors are in the same position. They're in the same boat. I mean, JaVale McGee is about it. JaVale McGee can kind of defend him, there's no doubt, and he can probably cause them problems, but there's no one else on that roster that should cause LaMarcus Aldridge any issues whatsoever. I don't want to hear about Kevin Durant and his improved defense, and you can put him on. No, not when LaMarcus Aldridge is the real LaMarcus Aldridge. The question, of course, in that series is going to be, can the San Antonio Spurs get their pace? Can they slow the pace down? Can they get it into a half-court game where they can allow LaMarcus Aldridge to kind of take over that series? And then, of course, the other key, they're going to have Kawhi Leonard healthy as well. You know, I don't know, with this Spurs team, I feel a little bit better about their chance to make this a series from what I saw tonight. Then again, I have to remember they were playing the Houston Rockets. Anyway, glad you took a chance, took a few minutes to listen to me rant about tonight's game. I hope that you'll come back and listen to me a little bit more here on the Sports and Swag podcast. Again, I appreciate it. Please join us on the website. Check it out. Like us on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. Like the Facebook page. All that good stuff I leave you with on every podcast. Until sometime this weekend, we talk about these NBA playoffs with the Wizards again. We'll see what they do at home tomorrow night against the Boston Celtics. I would not be at all surprised if John Wall and the Wizards fold up tomorrow night and lose that game. It would not shock me at all. We'll see what happens, and I definitely will be here to talk about it. Again, appreciate you listening. I'm out.